Well, this question is particularly close to my heart. Jill wants to know what your thoughts are on California liberals moving to Idaho. If you don't know, that's where I live. Will they bring their liberal ideas with them? Thanks.
Okay, so that's a great question. The jury's still out on Idaho. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it's going to happen at all. And keep in mind, as all that's happening, Moscow, Idaho is probably doubling or tripling. I would love to get its figures of how much it's grown just in the last 20 years. But I'm assuming it's doubled, tripled, quadrupled just in the last 20 years. But people moving there, but also people having families. Again, the key, the demographic destiny that liberals are not going to be able to outrun is they're not replacing themselves in the end. That's the problem. That's why you got to keep that long-term trajectory. They're not, and so like the Shakers, they're going to basically disappear. Now, I know they're like vampires and that they're trying to make converts of our kids and so forth. And yes, they're successful with about 30% or so. But 70, 80% of our kids remain faithful. Into adulthood. They tend to keep their conservatism into adulthood. Don't judge them when they're between 18 to 26. That's a very nebulous period. It's always been. Even Augustine writes about how bad some of the kids were that he was teaching in the 4th century. So there's always something there. What we do is we have studies, particularly a British study, a fascinating British study over the course of 40 years that found that on average, we become 1% to 2% more conservative every single year we age after 26. So it's not static. That's an important part. So all of that's to say they're not replacing themselves. They are beginning to dissipate. But there are some states where they do seem to have affected the politics in more blue direction. Maricopa County would be a perfect example of that. There are some examples, but the pattern is red states are getting redder. And it's not just red states getting redder, like Florida would be a perfect example. North Carolina, remember the 4 major states people are moving to right now are Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and North Carolina. I'm sure Idaho is probably 5th or 6th. Idaho is just growing by leaps and bounds. And maybe one day we'll get a direct flight there. but yeah, well, yeah. So we don't have to go through, I don't know, Puerto Rico to get there. But anyway, yeah. So, and all 4 of those states have gotten more red, not less. North Carolina now has a supermajority legislature, Republican supermajority legislature, and a thoroughly Republican Supreme Court, state Supreme Court. So this is all good news. And we're also finding that in the latest study that I talked about, I think last Thursday's video, we also finding that even in blue states, the red counties, the counties that voted for Trump, are growing and the blue counties are shrinking. Mm-hmm. So this is happening at 3 levels, this migration. The lefty migration is happening at 3 levels. It's happening at a macro level of blue state to red state, at a meso level, middle level of city to rural, right, exurban, and at a micro level from county to county, blue county to red county. So far, we're seeing red counties getting redder, red areas getting redder, red states getting redder. But there are some victims in there as well. So there is a bit of ambiguity, and we'll just have to see how it continues to flesh out. Regardless, long term, there's nothing they're going to be able to do about it. California will turn red eventually. Long term, there's nothing they can do about it.
While we know constitutional carry is sweeping the nation, millions of Americans and even you courageous patriots out there, you Turley talkers, you're still stuck in blue or weak red states restricting your constitutional right to bear arms. Well, don't worry, gang. Countrywide concealed is probably the quickest way to get carrying legally in the majority of the United States. That's right. You won't just be able to carry in your state, but in 84% of the whole of the US of A. It's as quick as watching a video and taking a quiz. And thanks to Countrywide Concealed, your family is that much safer from a myriad of threats no matter where you go. Getting a concealed carry license has literally never been easier. So just click on that link below and join the millions of patriots who've taken back their rights and started carrying legally with Countrywide Concealed today.
So, Steve, I want to dig into that long-term concept quickly because I'm reading the comments. I've seen comments like this before. Many people who listen to us and watch our show are in their 70s and 80s. And it can be incredibly disheartening to hear that it's going to be maybe decades until we see a revolution.
Yeah.
So what encouragement do you have for people who are watching the world seemingly go to flames and think that it may not be in their lifetime that they have hope?
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't want to minimize that, but I do. I mean, just let me encourage you to develop a pioneer mindset in that sense. All great civilizations have to begin somewhere, and including renewal politics, which is what we're all about. It's a new term that's actually been being used more and more. It actually comes out of Turkey in the last 20 years. Turkish civilizational theorists trying to reawaken Turkey's a much more traditionalist Islamic conception of Turkey and its place in a geopolitical world made up of civilizations. They refer to their politics increasingly as restoration politics. And what you want to see is you want to see yourself as really the first generation of restoration politics. Keep in mind, Ben Franklin, if I recall, he either signed the Declaration of Independence or helped ratify the U.S. Constitution when he was 70 years old. Right? Winston Churchill fought World War II when starting at the age of 70. So the world often gets reborn on the backs of septuagenarians and octogenarians who like Moses may not see the promised land, as it were, but they were the pioneers that helped usher it in, and it would not have been ushered in apart from their faithfulness, apart from the way they raised their kids, apart from how they used their money, apart from how they just stayed focused on events and used social media and encouraged others in networking and the like. So I would just encourage you to have a pioneer mindset, have a Joseph mindset. Make sure you take my bones with you when you finally get to the promised land. And then we see each other as part of this grand continuity of patriots all throughout the centuries who love faith, family, and freedom, who love civilization, who love culture, as they ought to, because it's the embodiment of the true, the good, and the beautiful, to be passed down from generation to generation, not destroyed, not crushed. I mean, the general orientation that was required of us in the garden was one of gratitude. That's the general orientation. As a matter of fact, when Paul says in Romans 14, all things are made clean in thanksgiving. Don't judge a person whether he eats meat sacrificed to idols or not, or don't judge if he's giving thanks to God for it in Christ. Then this is good. You need to leave it alone. Why? Because the very first sin in the garden was taking food for which we did not give thanks. So thanksgiving, gratitude, it's the perfect posture of creature to creator. And then the creator in the process provides for all of our needs. He glorifies himself by taking care of us. And then we glorify him by thanking him. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve a civilization, a culture, because ultimately we're grateful, as opposed to those who want to tear it down and destroy it. They're venomous. They're horrible, right? They're demonic in that sense. So that if you hold on to that and recognize that you, by your faithfulness and embodying this culture, you enabled it to be passed on to the next generation. You'll see yourself as a pioneer in this process, and a selfless one at that.